What's happening, everybody? You're listening to the long-awaited return of House Rules. Joey Stalin and the Edge, albeit different houses, but same rules apply. And we're talking strictly Super Bowl 49. First things first, Stalin, good to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back. And we got you on a call-in. I mean, this is
How do you like that?
completely different from what we were doing. We were sitting in this. I mean, we can still see each other, but I mean, you're on a different time zone than me now.
Yeah, I'm on a whole different wavelength.
So it's
over here,
8:22 here. What time is it there?
6:22 here.
Damn.
This took some orchestrating. It
Yeah.
definitely took some orchestrating.
Yeah.
I kept feeling. It's gotten to a point where now when I text, I have to say Eastern time. Like I have to put a little ET in there so people know like what kind of time zone I'm dealing with.
Yeah, you kept texting me last night saying your time. Like I was trying to figure out what you were trying to get at, but
Like whose time's more important? All right. So like I said, we're talking Super Bowl 49, Seahawks Pats. Probably the first time in a little while that it actually is the two best teams. I'd say the public would agree that it's the two best teams in the league playing for all the marbles. Unfortunately, also for the first time, and as long as I can remember, the game really hasn't been discussed as much as it probably should be because we've been stuck talking about Deflategate, and we start with it only because it feels like we have to, but I feel like we'll each say one thing on it, and then we can kind of move on.
all right.
What's your take as the resident Patriots fan? Give me your your hot take on Deflategate.
It didn't make any sense why it came out. I just feel like it was something to bring up because there's a lot of haters with the Patriots. They've pulled some stunts over the years, and people are pissed that they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think we can both agree that if it's any other team other than the Patriots, it's 1 day, 2 day, and then we move on. And the fact that it's the Patriots, the fact that it's Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and they have these legacies associated with them that all of a sudden are under an extra bit of scrutiny, it just adds fuel to the fire, and it's brutal. I mean, I don't have a TV right now, and boy, am I glad that I don't have to watch SportsCenter because I can only imagine that that's what it is 24 hours a day.
And the problem with me is all day long when I'm at work, I listen to WEI radio. That's all they've talked about. I can't even listen to the radio. I can't listen to TV. It was on fucking CNN at one point. I'm like, is it really that big of a topic that I feel like it came to the point that they didn't have anything to talk about, so everybody spoke about it. My biggest problem with it, too, is the fact that they played the Colts in Week 8, that they said something about it. I guess they mentioned it to the NFL. They knew it before the playoff game with the Ravens. The Ravens said something about it. And then it comes to play right when they make the Super Bowl. It was never brought up. So if the NFL knew about it beforehand, why wasn't it brought up before the before the playoffs?
Yeah. And what's really bizarre to me is you kind of follow the chain of events in terms of what the NFL investigation is doing, and you get to the part where they have surveillance video of the locker room attendant who was in charge of the balls, and it's like, you really think that kid, that poor bastard, is the mastermind behind this whole thing? Like, and the fact that he's he's become like the focal point of what they're doing. It's become. I mean, what are we really doing? What are we really looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on. I mean, I'll talk about it because it's interesting to me, but I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of hearing about it, and it.
Well, I guess
it just comes to a point to me like I just don't see how it could help them at all.
Yeah, and what surprises me is the fact that they're talking about it on WEEI. You would think that story would be national, but it wouldn't necessarily, they would kind of try and move away from it in Boston. That's not the case?
No, they brought it up. They've interviewed people. I mean, it's known throughout the league, I felt like, that this is something, Aaron Rodgers says he likes him overinflated. I feel like everybody knows this goes on, and now they're trying to make it like the Patriots are cheating somehow.
It feels like a non-issue to me. Nothing that I've seen coverage-wise has dissuaded me from that. I see it on the nightly news, and I'm just blown away that that's the angle that everyone's taking with it.
I mean, this is your job. Did you have to cover it?
No, we didn't do anything about it in sports.
Really?
We didn't do about it in our sportscasts because both me and my co-pilot in sports agreed that it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
I think it was actually in the news aspect of one of our shows, and they kind of mentioned it, but one day and it's gone. I mean, we're not in the kind of market that would harp on that kind of thing. It's just,
Sure.
it's too national for what we do. Um, yeah, no, and I feel bad that we've just wasted 5 minutes even talking about
Yeah, I
this.
know. Well, it's just stupid conversation at this point. Now, I want to get back to, though, when you started the podcast, you said that these are two of the best teams in the Super Bowl. You agree with that as a Packer fan?
Well, it's harder for me to admit, but I think you could say that if either the Packers or the Seahawks had gotten in, you could have had that same line and said, these are the two best teams, especially based on the game that the Pats and Packers played, in week 12 or whatever that was when they played, and it was, it was a playoff atmosphere game, no turnovers. I mean, that's the kind of game that you're looking for. So I think if the Packers had made it, that I could have been able to say the same thing, and I wouldn't have been met with too much static.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I think the Seahawks have gotten hot and have played, and have stayed hot. I mean, I think they've won 9 straight. So I mean, they're not there by accident, and neither are the Patriots. So
sure. All right. No, I just wanted to get at that one just because I don't know.
If there's a silver lining to Deflategate, it's been that it's kind of deflected some of the talk that should have been on the Packers melting down, a week and a half ago, and not so much on the other game. I felt like that kind of got swept under the rug, which, for my sake, I was more than happy. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle reliving that. So, yeah. So, like I said, if there's any silver lining to Deflategate, it's for Packers fans not having to relive that painful Sunday afternoon.
Have you spoke to Satch?
Yeah, I was worried that he'd burn the house down. The house is still intact.
Still intact.
But he took it really hard.
Really?
He took it really hard. Yeah. Very, very hard.
Did he have to call out of work hard, or?
No. He said he was in the grocery store the next day, and he saw a couple guys wearing, like, Packers shirts, and he wanted to be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he wanted to, like, confront them and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys?
I've learned as a Patriot fan that I took the day after the Super Bowl off. Either way, they win, I can celebrate. They lose, I can sit home and cry. So I already have the day off. I'm actually gonna be. Side note: I'm actually not gonna be in home base though, which is weird for me. I'm gonna be down in Pennsylvania for the Super Bowl.
Pennsylvania?
I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but yeah, I'm going down for Groundhog Day. I planned this months ago. Yeah.
You going to Punxsutawney?
Yeah, so I got to find a bar down there, and I feel like I'm going to be hated on either way because everybody's Pittsburgh Steeler, Eagles fans, and they all probably hate the Pats.
Yeah, basically everywhere you go, they're pretty anti-Patriots, I would imagine, regardless of where you are. So
I'm hoping I could get in a nice fist fight down there or something.
There you go.
So
turn up, Punxsutawney.
Turn up.
Am I right?
I want to make a name for myself down there.
There you go. All right. Staying with the game, obviously, we'll start with X factors. Who you got? Who's going to be the guy? Not necessarily who's going to be the game's MVP, because I feel like that's, historically speaking, they go quarterback 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking you who's going to be the MVP. I'm saying who's going to be the X factor in the game.
I'd say Marshawn Lynch for the Seahawks, and for the Patriots, it's got to be Gronk.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. Gronk 100% has got to be the X factor for the Patriots. If the Seahawks cannot take Gronk out of the game,
they're screwed.
They're not. I mean, they can still potentially win a game where Gronk has a good game, but it makes it so much harder for them. And the Seahawks can say whatever they want about Gronkowski's not that good. Gronkowski's an animal, and you can't let him run free. You basically need to put 2 guys on him.
Yeah.
And they think I feel like if you're the Seahawks, you think Cam Chancellor is the guy that can kind of take away Gronkowski.
Sure.
Cam Chancellor, with the help of somebody kind of, whether it's a straight double team or what, they're thinking Cam Chancellor can be that guy to really kind of to frustrate Gronkowski.
Yeah.
You think that's accurate?
Yeah, I agree with that. But, I mean, if you look at it, though, I mean, maybe it's just because of the fact that the Patriots have only played the Ravens and the Colts, but Gronk hasn't been that big of a factor until this game. But now it is, you're right, it's the two best teams. But it's not like he's been the main scoring point for the Patriots throughout the playoffs.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But in this game against that type of defense, he's, like you said, he's like a fucking robot out there. He's got to be the guy that has to be. He's the game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for the Seahawks, I'm going to go a little bit of a dark horse on you. I'm going to say Michael Bennett.
Really?
And I say that really metaphorically speaking, the defensive line in general, because if you look at when the Patriots have had really good offenses and versus the times when they've really struggled, it's been when defenses can get Tom Brady off of his spot. And I think if Michael Bennett is able to not be offsides more than 4 times or not to get a false start penalty 4 times a game or something like that, I think if they can get to Brady and kind of make him uncomfortable in the pocket, I think that will really dictate the game.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, because they're often, but they are getting Stork back, the center. Their offensive line hasn't been great right all season, but I mean that's something. But you said before we couldn't pick quarterbacks. Where the Patriots, if Russell Wilson can do what he does, that's a scary thing for me because Patriots do not have the best defense against scrambling quarterbacks. As you could say when the Patriots played the Packers, and not that Aaron Rodgers is the best at scrambling, but he fucked them up over that. They don't know how to contain it. They don't know whether to rush or hold back, and
Yeah.
I feel
you
like
get caught in that no man's land. You get caught in that no man's land of should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? And
yeah.
all of a sudden,
yeah. If it collapses, he scrambles out and something opens up in the field. If they contain, it's a hard ground to pick. I as a fan, I fucking hate watching scrambling quarterbacks because you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
And Russell Wilson's probably one of the best in the game.
I'm glad that you mentioned Russell Wilson because he's kind of he's on a trajectory of really being a special quarterback in this league. And, a lot of people receive that kind of praise, but so far Russell Wilson's really been able to back it up in terms of, he's got a Super Bowl ring. He's vying for his second Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
And really, if you watch that, that Packers game, he looked he had 4 picks.
Yeah.
He looked very average. He looked like he was. He wasn't Russell Wilson, like the god that people make him out to be. And then all of a sudden, with 5 minutes left in the game, he turns it on, he gets to a different level, and all of a sudden the Packers can't do anything with him. And so I wonder how much Russell Wilson's impact directly is on one of these games. Well, obviously the quarterback is going to have. He's got his hand on the ball more than anybody on the field. But at the same time, what's Russell Wilson doing that Bill Belichick isn't going to be ready for necessarily?
True. As a Packer fan, before that game came in, everyone said, "Oh, Russell Wilson." One of his biggest things was he doesn't make mistakes. Now he made 4 mistakes during that game, and they still won. So that's the scariest thing. If he doesn't make any mistakes during this game, most people are saying that I've heard at least that it's going to be a game to the fourth quarter, and it's going to be one of those players, like you're saying, a standout player. Marshawn Lynch getting a run where he breaks through a tackle and keeps breaking through and gets a fucking touchdown, or Gronk doing the same exact thing in 5 minutes left to the game to determine the win. I think it's going to be just like the last couple Patriots Super Bowls where they lost to the Giants because of a great catch or
and almost in both instances. Yeah. Great.
I feel like that's the type of game it's going to be.
Yeah, and as a person with no stake in it, I hope that's what it is. Obviously, I'm assuming you hope it's a 48-0 blowout.
Oh, I'd love if it was the exact same game that happened with the Colts. I'm good.
You can turn.
The first half with the Colts was still a little scary for me, 17-7, but
yeah,
second half I was just whatever. I didn't even have to think.
Yeah. All right, let's go. We talked one quarterback. Let's switch into the other. Tom Brady. Obviously, the association of the word legacy follows him everywhere that he goes. How important does he need? Does he need this Super Bowl?
I think he does. I can't, as a fan, I can't. I don't want to go 3 Super Bowls, 3 losses in a row.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah, It hurts when you get to the top and don't make it all the way to the point.
Yeah, it just seems like a waste of a season, and some people don't understand as fans because they don't watch. But you're just like you are and me. You know, you spend every week from September on 4 hours of your day watching this, and they get this far. You just seem like you wasted your life for God, how many hours? They get to this point and then they fucking lose. Come on.
Yeah, and I feel like of all people, I feel like Tom Brady knows that he needs this game more than anybody on the field right now. Because when you hear people talk about Tom Brady, me and you can have an opinion, but the opinion that matters, I think, to Tom Brady is the ones of the jabronis talking on TV, or when he hears certain former quarterbacks and former Super Bowl champs. He hears Terry Bradshaw. You hear these guys talking about him and where he fits in the grand scheme of it all. I feel like that is who he feels like he has something to prove.
He's gotten a lot of flack for...
Yeah.
And he didn't interview right. He should have just came out and admitted that it was him. You're telling me he didn't know that, when he felt the ball that they were different, that it was like his whole idea. He definitely... And on some parts as a fan, I think that it could fuel the Patriots. This whole discussion might just, let's shut everybody up and win 48-0. Like you said, that would be nice. But he definitely needs it after all this, I think, and so does Belichick.
Yeah. I mean, it's two guys that are really in the same boat in terms of what their legacy is. If you go back 10 years ago, these guys are gods walking among us. They can do no wrong. Tom Brady can never lose. Bill Belichick is a mastermind. You lose 2 Super Bowls. You have some of this off-the-field stuff with Spygate and now Deflategate and now the circumstances that surround everything that they've accomplished. All of a sudden, you kind of get the sense, and maybe they don't feel this way, but I feel like it's almost human nature for them to feel as such that there's a little bit more pressure riding on them this Super Bowl than there was definitely last Super Bowl. Maybe not when they were going for perfection, but definitely a little bit more riding on this one because of the perception that's surrounding them as they enter this game.
Well, and it's weird the fact that both teams are almost in similar boats. Like you were saying, Dynasty, they lost 2, but the Patriots won 2 in a row. Now, if the Seahawks win, they'll win 2 in a row. It's going to be talk about Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. They're very similar stories almost. The Seahawks, if the Seahawks win, they're like the Patriots back in 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
And Patriots lose, then it's they won. Everyone's going to still go at they haven't won since, Deflategate and Videogate or whatever.
Yeah, Videogate.
Spygate.
Joey Stalin in the end, bringing you house rules, albeit from different houses. Same rules apply. Talking Super Bowl 49, where you got
different
probably
time
the 2
central.
best teams in the league. Probably the 2 best teams in the league going head-to-head.
Yep.
And we've spent a lot of time about certain aspects of the game, but one of the real glaring issues, I would say, if you're the Patriots offense, is the Seahawks defense. And something that I feel like has been kind of lost in the shuffle, and we're not really sure where their health is at, is Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas both came up at different junctures in that Packers-Seahawks game, hobbled a little bit. Not much feedback in terms of where they're at, in terms of what their injuries were. I felt during the Packers-Seahawks game that the Packers never really challenged Richard Sherman after he sustained his injury, and so we don't really know what he's dealing with. what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on this game?
I mean, if Richard Sherman isn't healthy, I mean he's the key to the defense. And I mean, you even saw it against the Packers. He's the guy that's going to make the big pick of the game overall, right? You agree with that?
I mean, I do. I feel like the more because
I'm saying if you had to pick on two sides, it's Darrelle Revis and Richard Sherman, right?
Yeah.
And if Richard Sherman isn't healthy, I mean, I haven't heard much this week about him to say that he's not healthy. What?
We haven't heard anything, and I've actually heard more about the fact that he could potentially not play in the Super Bowl because his girlfriend could give birth to their first child. Which
that brings up a whole separate topic that I don't know if we want to get into.
No, I don't think we do. But at the same time, it's almost like
I kind of want to get into it. I want to get into it though. If you were having a kid, or not, if you were having a kid and your wife was about to have a kid, Super Bowl day, you're playing the NFL. Would you be and you were in the Super Bowl? Would you be at the Super Bowl or at your kid's birth?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what kind of player I am going to be in the game.
I guess that's a good point. Well, Richard Sherman is a big part of the game. So you're Julian Edelman for the Patriots.
I'm playing in the game.
And you're going to tell your son or daughter after the game that, hey, I won the Super Bowl for you.
And I'm changing my child's birth date to the day after the Super Bowl, and I was there.
Or you could name them like.
Is that legal?
Or you could name them like say it was a son like David Edgecombe the 49th or something, based on the Super Bowl date. You know what I mean? It would make it epic.
I suppose I do. Yeah.
So Richard Sherman might not play because of that. They're saying, or I didn't.
I don't buy it for a second. And wouldn't it be a perfect way to diffuse the fact that your elbow is so banged up you couldn't play in a football?
Oh yeah. Oh definitely.
If you have another reason to chalk up to why you can't play in that game, that you go with that.
Oh definitely. Yeah. Why wouldn't he want to use something else as an excuse? Instead of saying,
that's more conspiracy. At this point, that's more conspiracy theory than anything, and I know that's right up your alley.
It's more I love conspiracy theories.
Well, I mean, we mentioned Richard Sherman and how important he is in that secondary. Earl Thomas, I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, or whether certain people are saying it or not, they consider him to be more important than a lot of people, than Richard Sherman in terms of what the Legion of Boom is all about. And he's another guy that came up hobbled in that Packers game. We know he's playing. There's no second doubting. There's no second guessing that.
Yeah.
But what's his health level like, and what's that all going to be about? So, what do you think? How important is Earl Thomas's 100% health status being for that game?
I mean, I like to say it as a fan in general, as a Patriot fan, the whole, like they say, the Legion of Boom has to be there to be a good defense. I mean, if the Patriots didn't have Darrelle Revis, you need everybody. You look at it throughout the season, you have Darrelle Revis, and then you bring in Brandon Browner. It took a while for, you'd rather, a defense I feel like is, it's harder to mesh with than an offense. Like you all have to be on the same page to.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to kind of assume what guy has a tendency to.
It's who's going to be where and who's going to be like. And
yeah.
It's tough either way. Like if someone's missing, it's going to fuck up something. Where a big part of the Patriots defense that's not getting a lot of recognition is Jamie Collins.
And you willing to blow some shine his way? You willing to?
I'm saying if he wasn't there, like, I mean, all season. I'm just saying if the Pats didn't have Jamie Collins, they got Hightower, they lost Mayo, which was huge this year. If they if they had everybody right now, they have the exact same defense. Seattle, New England wise, like the teams match up perfectly.
They are good foils of each other. I'll give you that. And so, I guess realistically speaking, is the Legion of Boom really packing that much boom if Richard Sherman is at 70% and Earl Thomas is at 70% as well?
Well, what would you say Richard Sherman's percentage was when they won the game there?
Well, against the Packers?
Yeah.
At the end?
Yeah.
50%.
He was at 50%, and they still won the game.
They won the game because the Packers decided not to throw the ball, and they never challenged him. He came away with his arm, huddled against himself. He couldn't really run with it, immediately after it. And I don't think the Packers ever threw at Richard Sherman from that point. If only because the rest of their game plan was, we're up by 20 and there's 3 minutes left in the game. Let's just run the football every single down. And we're getting into a whole different can of worms in terms of the Packers' game plan at the end of that game. But I didn't think they challenged Richard Sherman for the rest of the way. And Richard Sherman never got challenged. We don't know what his health level is like. We don't know we don't really know what that injury actually impacted.
Yeah.
At least with Earl Thomas sustained that injury first half, came back and played the second half, and was not just like a gaping, was not like a serious liability in the secondary. So that his status for the game, he'll be a factor because he'll still beat Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
And based on the lack of reporting that we've received versus Richard Sherman's injury, he'll be just fine. But at the same time, if he takes a good knock early in the game, who knows what that injury actually could be. And so if you're the Patriots, how do you not go after Richard Sherman right now and take and at least see what you're working with? We've talked Seahawks defense. We'll go back to your X factor in the game, Marshawn Lynch, and we won't necessarily talk about what he can potentially bring on the field, but I feel like we need to kind of at least acknowledge what he's doing off the field in Media Week, which is a complete circus. And I hate, much like Deflategate, I hate giving this all kind of credence, but at the same time, Marshawn Lynch is clearly taking a stance that what he's doing...
I'm here not to get fined.
I feel as if he's trying to make his cause a valiant one. I'm unsure what his cause is at this point. Do you have any idea?
I just feel like he's a player that doesn't want to talk to the media.
No,
and there's certain players that don't want to talk to the media, and I don't think that he should be fined for it. He doesn't like to talk. Like, Gronkowski loves the limelight. He loves the fact that they like to, the other day they asked him, they said, why do people worry about you partying? And he said, because I'm a baller, duh. Next question. Like, he has an answer for everything. There's certain people that like the attention, and Marshawn Lynch doesn't want anything a part of it. I don't think
with that same token, though, there are lots of other players that don't necessarily feed off the limelight quite like Rob Gronkowski does.
No, I agree.
They're in the same boat.
Rob Gronkowski and Johnny Manziel are almost in the same boat, right?
I guess I give you that. I feel like Gronkowski has more credence to back up his behavior.
Well, God knows why Johnny Manziel has all those commercials now. He hasn't done shit.
True. No, credence on the field. I'm talking.
Oh, yeah.
Field cred.
Street cred, field cred.
Exactly. But I feel like there are a lot of players that don't love talking to the media. Which I get. Do
you really feel like they have to talk, or they should be fined if they don't talk?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Well,
they're not getting. They're getting paid to play the game. They're not getting paid to talk. right?
Yeah, they are though. They are though. They're being paid an inordinate amount of money to be a spokesperson for the organization that pays them that amount of money. They don't have to be visionaries. They don't have to be, wordsmiths. They don't have to be any of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They just have to stand there and they just have to answer a couple of questions.
So So you watching Marshawn Lynch this week when he said, "I'm just here not to get fined," you hated watching him do that, or you thought that he should have done it differently? Like, because there was a lot of people on TV that said that he's got all these organizations and he's trying to raise money for all these things. Like he should have. I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Stephen A. Smith that said that he should have brought up his stuff that he's trying to raise money for, and go into different topics. But he just completely went away from it and said, "Hey, the only reason I'm sitting up here is so I don't get fined."
I take it with a mixed bag because I've heard from various accounts and radio different people that perhaps Marshawn Lynch has some sort of, like an anxiety thing where he can't handle talking to the media.
True.
And if that's the case, and if you're the NFL and you're dealing with a person that literally cannot handle an interview in front of 4 or 5 cameras, can't deal with that situation.
Yeah, but how many cameras are in front of him right now for the Super Bowl?
No, more than that. But I'm saying even before when he started these antics, I guess I'll say that they'll be 4 or 5 cameras, whatever. Well, we'll average it at 4 or 5 cameras, and he can't handle it, and he can't do it, and it's because he has he has an anxiety disorder. He has a legitimate anxiety, mental disorder where he can't handle being in that situation, and all of a sudden you have to look at it differently, which I get. Like, hey, if somebody is, and I'm drawing a blank on what kind of mental disability would make you, feel this way, but if you just can't handle being in crowds, and all of a sudden you're thrust into the limelight, and you have to talk to crowds on a weekly basis and kind of, talk, self-reflectively about what you're doing, I can understand how that will be tough, and I can understand your leeriness your hesitancy to do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I need some sort, there almost needs to be some sort of doctor proof to prove that, or else every player that didn't want to talk to the media could say that same thing. Oh, hey, no, I don't like talking
I have
to
stage
the media.
fright? You're saying that people don't have that? You've heard of that before.
I'm saying people can be shy, but but you're getting paid a lot of money, and people aren't asking you necessarily the kind of hard-hitting questions like, why do you feel this way when this happened? They're not hard.
So you're saying that on some parts that you're saying on some points that you feel that Marshawn Lynch is just stubborn, doesn't want to answer the questions. He's just right.
I feel like it's gotten to a point where he's gotten very stubborn about what he's doing, the cause that he thinks that he's representing.
Yeah.
And Marshawn Lynch could be super, he could be, for lack of a better word, he could be very scared to talk in front of a group of people. And I can't say that, he didn't sign up to be a public speaker. He signed up to be a professional football player.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you get paid a lot of money to be a professional football player.
You're saying
part of that title includes talking to the media, because the media is not here for their own gain. The media is there for the bridge between the player and the fan. It may not always feel that way, but that's the way that it is structured, and that's the way that it exists, in most aspects. And the fact that Marshawn Lynch can't answer, what were you thinking on that third down play where you broke free and scored that touchdown, and he says, I'm here so I don't get fined. He may think that he has a loyal cause, a justifiable cause. I'm not sure he really acknowledges who is receiving what he's saying.
And now that you said it, I completely agree with you because when they get signed to that contract, they know what they're getting into. The reason he's out there playing, the reason he's making money is because of the fans.
Yeah.
There's no reason that he's playing the game of football for the NFL unless someone's watching that game.
I mean, the media itself is a conduit. It's meant for fans to feel closer to the players that they follow in the door.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that want to know, and it's not necessarily, and it gets misconstrued very frequently by malicious media members that feel the need to be overzealous and reach out and try and put somebody on blast and try and reach for those kind of headlines, almost as if almost to make themselves more of a headline than what the player is actually saying and presenting to the masses. And I get the sense that Marshawn Lynch is under the impression that that's what the media is.
Yeah.
And that the only people that really care about him are the people in his family and his immediate people. Like what he said today.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing horribly, but that if, the people that care about me, I'll see them tonight and they'll get to speak to me. But he's representing an organization that is paying him significantly more money than anybody in any of the fans that actually get to that are cheering him on, that are in the stands. 90% of the fans that are there aren't necessarily, and I won't say at the Super Bowl, I'll say at their NFC Championship game, because I don't, that's a different story. Who goes to the Super Bowl is a different story. But
yeah,
those fans aren't the people that are in the locker room after wondering why he fumbled. They're not trying to embarrass Marshawn Lynch. They're just trying to get a better understanding of who they're rooting for and whose jersey they're buying and who's all part of a big industry.
Yeah, no,
If Marshawn Lynch's beef is with the NFL, he's displaying it in a very odd way by still having the NFL, cash his check, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
if
but
he has a beef with how the NFL does their business and whatnot, he's got a very weak leg to stand upon because they're the same ones signing his check and allowing him to be Marshawn Lynch and not having to work a regular job. It's almost like he views it as
it feels like all his conversation he just thinks it's Marshawn Lynch versus the media, but
world.
no, it's him, it's Seattle, it's the NFL. He's representing people that they're paying for him to pay his family. It all goes back to Latrell Sprewell when he fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of these players don't realize what they're actually doing. They have the completely separate mind that I'm just running back for Seattle.
Yeah, I hate to take this viewpoint because it feels uber conservative, in terms of where we are politically speaking in this country. That
he grew up in Oakland.
I mean,
kind of
hey, you're getting paid a lot of money to do something that a lot of people would kill to have, but
wish they could do.
They have to work at McDonald's. They have to work at Walmart. They have to work. I mean, that's one end of the spectrum. I mean, a lot of the other people, they have to work at, they're real estate agents. They're people they're regular people that view you on Sundays as larger than life.
And at the end of the day, he's getting paid enough money that he can walk out there and answer questions for 15 minutes.
He'll never have to work a day in his life. Based on the money that he's given to him, regardless of how poorly he spends it and what kind of restrictions that they put on it, what kind of bonuses he can receive and all the tie-ups and loose ends in a contract. He's making more money now than he would ever have to, then he'll never have to work a regular job in his entire life. They football players receive brain damage, and there's so many risks to playing football. That is perfectly valid, and that makes a lot of sense. There are other people that take all kinds of risks to do their job, and they don't get broadcast on TV, and they don't make millions of dollars to do it.
True.
Instead, they watch you on Sunday, and on Monday they're back there at work trying to provide for their family, and their predicament is much more serious than Marshawn Lynch's, than Latrell Sprewell's, than all those athletes that for some reason feel like what they're doing requires more of a strain on their family, when it's really a choice. It's really not a mandatory fact that you play basketball and you travel state to state on a nightly basis. It's a mindset that we've gotten into as a culture of late. The fact that what they're doing is some sort of bigger cause or whatever. They get paid a lot of money to play a game, and they get paid handsomely to do that. And
it comes down to, just like you said, it's a game. They're playing a game. They're getting paid this massive amount of money for a game that people, started in a backyard, that's on TV, that's, the only reason they're making this much money is all the advertisements, and, it's unbelievable when it comes down to, if you talk to, people that are, and I love sports, but when I have friends that are electricians or, firefighters or whatever, they look at it like they hate sports because of the fact that these players that are doing, in their opinion, nothing compared to what they're doing. And it's not that they're not, but it comes down to some people look at it as meaningless shit, and they're getting paid all this money. You know what I mean? If you're not a sports fan, what is the NFL to you? So, like, they're getting paid all this money to do something, and it's that hard to, you're getting millions of dollars, all you got to do is answer questions for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
You've made a great point. I'll give it to you.
I mean, I think
it's the fact because you work in the media, though, but...
Yeah. I mean, I get the sense that it's not uncommon for someone to be uncomfortable in front of a room full of cameras.
No.
When people are comfortable with that, that's almost more of an oddity. When someone can sit in front of a room full of cameras and really dazzle in front of it, that's almost you're a geographical oddity.
But we talked before, our two game changers, well, at least for me, Marshawn Lynch and Gronk. Gronk has came into the game and has lived for the cameras, where Marshawn Lynch...
Or his teammate Richard Sherman,
he loves the
thrives in front of a camera.
Yeah. There's certain players that like it.
Like I guess I'll close this out with, I understand what I understand what Marshawn Lynch thinks he is doing, and thinks the kind of message that he is getting across. And he's mad at the Seahawks too, because they haven't re-signed him, because they're treating him just like a piece of meat, just like every other running back in the league for that matter.
Yeah.
It's tough for a running back to get re-signed mid-season. They're in such a vulnerable position that's so replaceable. But at the same token, he may think that what he's doing makes a lot of sense and that it's quite reasonable. It really isn't, because of all the extenuating circumstances that has put him up on that pedestal in the first place. He is not Marshawn Lynch, the human, on display, and everyone wants to get a part of Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is a part of an organization that is part of a big game that's a spectacle in the United States. And the fact that he can't answer a single question, even when they're about his charity, even when they're about trivial things that he could answer, he's not helping himself. And he's not forming himself a healthy argument about what he's doing.
Yeah. No, you're right, because that was the biggest thing I saw in the interview before was, and I think it was Stephen A. Smith, or I forget who it was the fact that they brought up his charity and said, if he doesn't want to talk, fine. If he doesn't want to bring up, when they ask the questions, but if he wants to talk about his charity for the first, 15 minutes that he has to do, good. At least someone will hear him talk and they'll be happy that he spoke. But when he sits up there and he says, I'm just up here to not to get fined, in layman's terms, he's kind of being an asshole.
It's almost frustrating for a lot of people to hear, I think, is if you're a regular person, it's almost more aggravating to hear somebody that has a mouthpiece and is able to, like you mentioned, his charities. He's got the forum to be vocal and to create so much awareness about various things.
Yeah.
And he chooses not to use it, and I think that bothers the public tremendously. Sure. He might be catering to a good selection of people that think, like you thought, that, hey, why are they making this poor guy get up there and talk and say all these kind of things that he doesn't care about and nobody cares about? Yeah, it's frustrating when people that don't have a voice see somebody that
has a voice
choose not to use it.
Yeah,
and I think that's really what Marshawn Lynch has kind of stumbled upon. That he could get up there at this point. He could get up there and say anything, and there'll be people there to listen, and it will feel that much more profound when the person that doesn't choose to speak a lot says something.
Yeah,
it feels that much more. It has that much more weight
meaning.
to it.
Yeah,
and it's. I mean. It's as if he's really stuck in what he's doing, what kind of message he's trying to send right now, and there's nothing that you can say to him, which is unfortunate. And I feel like that's as good a segue as that we'll get in terms of the tail end of our Super Bowl 49 podcast. I'm gonna have a pick. You're gonna have a pick. I would like to have a score in mind. I'll go first, or you can go first, depending on how you feel.
I'll go first.
Lay it on me.
All right. And it's no bias, but after all the controversy, after everything, I still have to go with the Patriots. And still, as I said before, in everything, they have to play a perfect game. It's going to be a close game. I feel like it's going to be down to the fourth quarter, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I will give it 21-14 Pats.
That low?
I don't see it going to over/under, I don't think the over/under is very high. But I honestly think
the over/under was relatively high, though. I think it was like 40 something, wasn't it? High 40s. I'm gonna say, and again, it's a pick'em for a reason, because you could ask me tomorrow, and I think I'd have a different score. I think Hauschka kicks 3 field goals.
The over/under's 48. Sorry.
48. Yeah, it'll be under that. I think Hauschka kicks 3 field goals. I think it's 27-31 Seahawks.
So 31-27 Seahawks?
31-27. I'll write it down. I say 31. I want to start again. 31-27 Seahawks.
21-14, yeah.
Pats.
I don't see it being a high scoring. I see it being like 7-3 at half. I really, I feel like it could be just like the game that they had against Baltimore for the Patriot wise.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if either team hits over 30.
I mean, but it all depends what really happens. It all depends who shows up, because last year I did not expect what happened with Denver. I thought it was going to be a close game.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, yeah. If I had to bet on anything, I'd bet on it not being a repeat of last year. I think if that was my stone cold lock of the week, I'd say it's not going to be a blowout. It's not going to be a blowout in any direction.
Will Marshawn Lynch grab his crotch after scoring a touchdown in the game? Yes. 400, no, minus 600. Let's go for the prop bets. What do you think?
Yes.
You think he will grab his crotch?
I think he's grabbing his crotch right now.
He probably is. Will Bill Belichick smile during the game on camera? A yes for plus 40, a no for minus 180.
No.
And number 1, over under, how many times do you think that they will bring up the word deflate during the game? And the over
10.
under is 10, 10, yes.
10? I'm saying over 10.
You're saying over 10. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's, as you would say, it was the two of the best teams, and I agree with you on the fact that if the Packers would be in it, it would be because ever since the Patriots played the Packers,
just as entertaining.
It would have been the same game. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's an exciting game. I'd say it's on NBC, so tune into my station after you finish watching the game if you really want to see some entertaining, newscast, sportscast, whatever you want to do. It's on NBC, KKCO 11. For Joey Stalin.
In the Edge.
The Edge. House rules, albeit different houses, same rules apply.
Same rules apply. And you know what? I'm gonna make a statement. We will have a post-game show after the Super Bowl. It might not be that same week, but week after we'll discuss what happened in the Super Bowl.
I like it. I like what
that?
you're doing there.
All right.
Keep the people interested.
We got to keep
That's
the people
what I
going.
always say. So for Joey Stalin, the Edge, House Rules is coming to a close. Be sure to wipe your feet when you walk out this motherfucker. We'll see you next time.
Deflategate. Late.